Welcome to Open House, the real estate and mortgage show on News Talk 580 CFRA.
With Frank Napolitano and Paul Rushforth, here is Steve Gregory.
Welcome to May.
Welcome to May.
Got a full house today.
We do, don't we? We've got a few special guests in the house, starting with Tanya Woods, who's here from Questrade Community Trust, government relations. So we're
So what is that?
well, we're at we just had a big day on Monday, and hopefully Tanya will enlighten us as to what to expect in housing.
No, what is Questrade? I mean,
What is Questrade? What do you mean, what's Questrade? Community Trust really is a lender that we work with, but Community Trust is owned by Questrade, if I'm not mistaken, right, Tanya?
Correct.
Yeah, there you go. So
we're
Questrade
going to
is
get some insight onto what's going on after the election, which is going to be
government
nice.
stuff, yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
gonna be
So,
nice.
so, ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear less of Paul today, so it'll be good.
So you might as well tune out right now if you're going to hear less of me too. But the beauty is my phone's not going to ring because Petra's actually here. My girlfriend's here, so she won't be calling me.
so you will be on your best behavior then.
I'll have to be on my best behavior today, yes.
No odors from Paul today.
Nope.
No.
Between the breaks, he won't be saying anything negative, so yeah, it'll be good.
And, of course,
No, it's
Greg
all
Tilley's
good.
here, of course.
Hey, by the way, I was on your site today.
Yes.
What a load of photos you have there now. You got a lot of listings.
We have a load. Yeah, we're well over 100 listings right now. So, and Greg's pretty happy right now because now's the time. We what was it? 10 days ago we had snow on the ground, and so now he has to go to 100 listings and reshoot all those listings and get rid of the snow. And then if they're still there when we're hit, the beauty of the summer when flowers are out and all that, he might even have to go back again and
It
take
won't
some reshoots.
still be there.
Well, they better not still be there, but you know what? Some will, because we're in a market right now that we've talked about before. If your home some people ask me, is it the right time to buy or the right time to sell right now? And it's actually both, because to buy right now, there's so much inventory on the market. I mean, like I said, we're well over 100 ourselves. There's so much inventory on the market right now. And there's a combination between beautiful homes, average homes, and really, really rundown properties. And we're seeing a market right now where there's so much inventory, and if it doesn't look amazing, it takes a lot longer to sell. So there's some deals out there to be had.
Because there's a lot of good properties.
Because there's
out
a
there.
lot of really good properties out there. And if your home shows well and is priced well, it will sell fairly quick. I mean, I'm looking at homes right now with actually one of Petra's friends, and homes that really show well, she'll send them to me, and I'll be like, that'll be gone before the weekend's over. We need to get in there right now. She'll send me another one. I'm like, we probably have a little bit of time on this one. So I know what's going to happen in the market just by what shape they're in. So, but if you're looking to buy, tons of inventory, rates are great. It's an amazing time to buy. You're looking to sell, you just have to make sure your home shows very well or it's priced accordingly. Because if it's not priced accordingly or it doesn't show well, it is not going to sell, or it's going to sit and sit and sit until many homes are off the market before your home actually sells.
So what happened in April? You have the numbers?
We do have the numbers. So in April, the number of sales was actually down 11.2%.
Ooh.
Yeah, and the average sale price was pretty much flat. It was 0.4% in April, which we
Up
can
or
see-
down?
Up 0.4 up. But their number of sales were drastically down. And if you look at the year to date, number of sales are down 5.4, and the average sale price is up 1.1. So we consider that a pretty flat average Ottawa market. So our average sale price is just up a little bit. Number of sales down 5%. It's not crazy, but it's still, we're down number of sales this year.
But some would say it's teetering towards a buyer's market if you start to see those kind of numbers. Now, again, if there's lots of listings out there, it kind of is a buyer's market. That means you have choice. We're not going through what we did 3-4 years ago. And honestly, when customers call me and say, Frank, is the right time to buy? I said, you really shouldn't be timing the market. You're either financially ready to buy a house or you're not financially ready to buy a house. If you are, you can't be thinking about what if next year they're $20,000 cheaper, $30,000. Then you'll never buy.
It's never going to happen anyway.
No, but you'll never buy then. Like, you can't be thinking that way. You have to identify.
Kind of like having a baby, isn't it? You can't wait until you're ready to have a baby.
But Frank, I will correct you on one thing there, is that it feels like we're in a buyer's market, but we're not. If you look at the numbers, we have 4.1 months of inventory right now. 0 to 4 is a seller's market. 4 to 6 is usually a balanced market, and 6 and above is usually a buyer's market. So we're at 4.1 months of inventory, meaning if no other house hit the market, it'll take 4.1 months to clear all the inventory on the market. So yes, that's a lower end, almost to the seller's side of a balanced market, but you're right. It feels more like a buyer's market, but it's actually in a balanced market right now. But I think those numbers will probably go higher and higher, and we will be closer to maybe a higher end of a balanced market by the end of this year.
How did you do compared to the market in April?
Well, we're up. So the market's down 5.4, and we're up 14.4. So we're well.
So a lousy month again.
Just a lousy month. Yes, we're well outpacing.
Only
the market.
14?
14.4. That's drastic when you think about it.
It is.
After 4 months, drastic. 14.4 up is a lot considering the market's down 5.4.
How'd you do compared to last year over year?
Well, we're up year over year, 14.4%.
Oh,
so,
you personally?
Yeah. Now, in April.
But compared to this market.
So in April, we were flat. We did the same amount of sales as we did last April, but our first 3 months were our biggest months. But you know what? We're outpacing the market, and I don't feel like when someone says, "Oh my God, we're in a really tough market," I'm like, I don't feel that, and our numbers are not showing we're in a tough market. But
tough in which way? Things aren't moving?
Things aren't moving. But listen, there's sold signs everywhere in this market. If you take a look in any neighborhood, there's sold signs, and homes are definitely selling. You do have more opportunity. You do have more choice out there. That's for sure. Most offers are coming with conditions. We're not seeing a ton of over asking, multiple offers, but we are seeing some. But usually you do have time. Whereas, during our crazy COVID period, it's like home hit the market. We need to be in within an hour, offer within an hour after that, and acceptance, an hour after that. So the market was insane, whereas we're not seeing that anymore. We might say, okay, it's a Friday now. Well, it's a Saturday, but, let's say it's a Friday and home just hit the market. If it shows well, you might want to get in there before the weekend's over. But if it doesn't show well...
That fast?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're seeing homes that are showing really nice that they won't last the weekend. They definitely won't. But if you look at a picture of a home and you're like, oh, that one's pretty ugly, it's a little run down, there's a very good chance that's going to be on the market for a little bit, unless it's priced properly. Now, I think the one thing that we were talking about before getting on the air was that sellers' expectations have now been more aligned with what's going on in the market. Over the last couple of years...
It took a while.
It did take a while, but over the last couple of years, we would actually go see a seller, and they'd say, well, no, I think my house is worth $850 because my neighbor 2 years ago got $850. I'm like, well, that was 2 years ago when the market was crazy. It's now worth about $750. So sellers are now more in line. When we tell them that, a lot of times sellers will say, I know, but 2 years ago it was $850, right? But now I know it's come down.
You pay more for what you're buying.
You would have paid more. So it's all relative. So, sellers are a little bit more realistic now, starting to get more realistic. But if you're a seller that is not realistic and your home doesn't show well and you're like, let's try it, those are the dangerous words right there. Let's try it, especially when your home doesn't show well. Even if your home shows well, do not overprice your home. We are not in a market to overprice or even try a certain price.
Are first-time home buyers coming back to you, Frank?
Coming back, but they're still a little nervous because houses obviously are still expensive. I mean, if you're getting the average home in the 600s and you're a first-time home buyer coming up with that 5% of the first 500 and 10% of the rest, you're coming up with 40, 45, 50,000, which is difficult for a lot of young buyers. That's why the average age now in Ontario is up to 40. Skewed a little bit.
That's amazing.
First-time home buyer. Now skewed because of the GTA, I think. But if you look at the Ottawa area, I would say probably between 32 and 35 is probably the average age of a first-time home buyer. And it used to be in the 20s, high 20s. So now you've got to wait longer. And I think that number will continue to rise, unfortunately, as we move forward. So hopefully, with our election now over with, and hopefully some rules will be put in place or some policies will change where it'll give some hope to young first-time buyers to maybe be able to own a home before they turn 40, because that's a long time to save money and pay rent in that time.
Sure,
especially with they live at home.
Especially with the way the rents are going.
Especially the way the rents are. It's really tough to save money.
It is tough to save money. When you're paying, $2,700 for a townhome in suburbia, how are you paying that plus your utilities and saving money for a 5, 10, 15% down payment? Like it's hard.
A lot of bank of mom and dad.
A lot of bank and mom and dad, and a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of scenarios where we're seeing a lot of separations. And the crazy part is we're seeing a lot of separations, couples that have been married 25, 30, 35 years, and now that their kids have grown up, they've decided to go in separate directions. So they're like,
I would argue they went separate directions long before.
Maybe, but they're officially doing it now. And therefore, I mean, it's good for real estate transactions because now one is becoming two, but at least the rules have changed a little bit where the government's acknowledging that anybody that goes through separation could be considered like a first-time home buyer. So therefore, they can take funds out of an RSP and contribute towards a down payment. So that's some good news that I hope they continue. And I know that we're the National Conference for Mortgage Brokers is here in Ottawa in October, and I know that we just set up what we call Hill Day, which is we go to Parliament Hill and we put 3, 4, 5 items on the agenda of things that we would like the government to consider, and so we're just starting that process now for October when we do it. So I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm actually, you know what I'm really excited about? I know we have to go to the breaks here, Steve, but I'm really excited to actually hear Tanya after the break, because there's some really exciting initiatives potentially that are happening in the housing market that she will touch on. I can't wait to hear it.
We'll call them promises.
Promises, but I think they're going to happen. I'm very optimistic.
Well, now that they're going to happen? Now that the election is over, why do I still see your signs everywhere?
I love it, Stephen. Love it.
521-TALK, 521-8255. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Paul here, Frank here, Tanya here. All right, election's over. What are we looking forward to?
Here. Everything.
Everything?
I mean,
does it all look good?
No. Who knows? Who knows? First, these are my opinions. I want to make sure everybody knows that, not that of my employer.
I can read a disclaimer.
Yeah, that's the disclaimer. I took care of it, but glad to be here and glad to be here on behalf of Questrade. So thanks for having me today. But it's been a
It's nice to have brains in the studio for once.
Yeah, it's the only time we usually have brains in the studio is when Frank's gone and it's just me and Steve.
Yeah.
You guys are so harsh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 5th grader brains, yep.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, it's been a busy week. We saw one of the most unprecedented election races of our time. We saw Donald Trump play a big role. Canadians decided that was the most important issue they were going to vote on, is how are we going to handle, threats to our sovereignty. I think it was pretty interesting. For those who don't know what happened, I mean, I'm sure most of your listeners are paying attention. It's hard to avoid it. But 169 seats to the Liberals. They have a minority at the moment, asterisks at the moment. Conservatives, 144 seats, and then everybody else, really. But both of those parties did incredibly well, all things considered, breaking all kinds of records for what they achieved. So it's really interesting. It was a tight race. We're 4 seats away right now from a Liberal majority, which means for the listeners, laws just move faster through the House of Commons. Changes happen faster when there's a majority government.
So why'd you say asterisks? Why'd you say
asterisks? Well, there's a lot of talk on the street of whether or not the Liberals are going to be able to bring over those 4 seats. Maybe convince some floor crossers to come over to their party.
And what streets are you referring to?
The
rough streets,
of Queen Street, Ottawa.
Yeah, okay.
They may not need that majority if they all get along the way it looks like they might at this point.
Yeah, we'll see what the NDP think about that, eh? Yeah. I mean, they almost became irrelevant overnight. So,
well, they're down to 7 seats,
that's
so they're kind of irrelevant.
Ish.
Hey, the Conservatives were down to 2 at one point. Remember?
But that's a while ago. I mean,
but they're irrelevant until they're not, and they're not when the Liberals need support to move something through. So it's really, really interesting that although they've lost this kind of official party status, they're still the linchpin, probably. So I think we got to watch that. Never count out an underdog, never. So I'm watching it closely. I'm kind of excited about this in a very nerdy GR way. So there you go. But housing, housing obviously on everybody's mind. This is a housing show, so let's talk about that for a moment. Kearney Liberals made a lot of promises. I think, a couple I want to highlight from yesterday's press conference, because this is where he's really said, here's my plan. Yeah. And he talked a lot about the Canada-U.S. trade relationship. I think there's an imminent trip to Washington, D.C. coming up. But he's mindful the cost for Canadians need to come down. So we see discussion about a middle-class tax cut by July 1, saving two-income families $825 a year, plus or minus. We're also seeing a cut, as you know, Frank's talked about this lots before, if not on the show, certainly off air, on new homes under $1 million, and lower GST for other homes between $1 and $1.5 million. I think that's interesting.
So they're cutting under $1 million. They're going to cut the HST,
the GST,
okay,
on new homes.
And for first-time buyers, though, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and then they're going to lower the GST. On other homes between $1 and $1.5 million.
So they'll blend that together, I guess.
Well, let's see what they do. It's always devils in the details, and I don't have any more details.
But only first-time home buyers, because there was talk it wasn't only going to be first-time home buyers.
Conservatives had everyone.
They were going for everyone.
Liberals only had first-time home buyers on their
Okay.
Yeah, but as Frank, you said right ahead of break, promises.
Promises. That's all they are right now. They could change.
They can change.
But they talked about it again.
They
which
did.
is
They
good.
did yesterday. So they're reaffirming yesterday these commitments. But look, for everybody to understand, the next 2 weeks in Ottawa are going to be important weeks.
Yeah.
We're going to have a speech from the throne, which is going to set the direction of the government quite formally.
From the king.
From the king, no less. He's disrupted Frank's conference. But,
Yes, he did.
But also, we've got still cabinet mandates, cabinet ministers. The government comes back on the 26th of the month. So let's see how this all plays out still. I think there's a lot still to talk about. And the big push, as we've heard, is building. They're going to be really driving building. So it's a builder's market too right now, I think.
And so we've heard this now for what? We've been doing the show for 18 years. We've heard this for almost 18 years now. How do they plan? I mean, I know you probably don't know the answers. I bet
she does.
But I love the fact, because we've been ad nauseum talking about how we have all these immigrants coming to Canada. We don't have enough housing. And the government keeps saying, we're going to put shovels in the ground and building. I know Carney came out and he was very aggressive by saying, we're going to be building similar to what we were after World War II. Like, is that the plan? Like, just...
That's what he has reaffirmed. So he's going to set up Build Canada Homes, which is a federal government entity, basically, that will give out $25 billion in funds to builders in addition to other incentives that they're going to be looking at. So
great.
Big program. There's
big focus on prefab, too. Huh?
Yeah, they're going to do bulk orders. They're looking at bulk orders, which is good. We do still have a trades shortage in the country, so we still need people to show up.
So
and
we
help
have a
do
trade
this.
shortage right now,
Yeah.
and they want to increase building by that much. How do we do that?
Get people moving.
Well, that starts in schools.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
but
it could
that
be
is-
immigration.
yeah.
It could be immigration. I'm sure there's people like if you're going to do any immigration whatsoever now, I feel like the immigration should be where we have shortfalls.
Yeah, it's got to be targeted.
So it's got to be targeted immigration where if we have shortfalls in tradespeople, bring the tradespeople over. If we have shortfall in nurses, bring the nurses over. That's what we have to do. No longer open the doors to anyone. You have to be in a specific trade that we need people for. And that's
Smart.
the way
Yeah.
immigration should be set up moving forward.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think those details are going to be really interesting. And yesterday at the press conference, he said, he is going to encourage skilled Canadians abroad to come home. So how many of those are trades workers? I don't know. But I think
We're gonna
that's
need
part
'em.
of the work ahead. Absolutely, we're going to need
Listen,
them,
there's
so.
kids in school that don't know what they want to do with their lives, and I've had quite a few of them ask me and wonder if they should go in the mortgage industry, the real estate industry. And I said, as a 19, 20-year-old, it's going to be really tough to succeed in that business at that young age. I mean, it's an uphill battle because you're going to have customers that look at you like you don't even own a home. Like, how could you tell me
How do you know?
how to sell a home or how to do a mortgage? So. But if you get into the trades business, you're going to do very, very well because, number one, there's a shortage, so you're not going to be looking for work because it's going to be there. They're good-paying jobs, and at the very least, at least get your foot in the door on housing, on trades, so that then if you still want to become a real estate agent or a mortgage broker down the road, you've got some experience. You know what you're looking at.
And
kind
I
of
like
thing.
at school now, like back when I went to school, you guys went to school long before me, but back when I went to school, a lot of the trades programs were kind of frowned upon. Like, let's go into English and science and all this stuff. Now, they're a priority is these trades programs in high schools and that, which is brilliant. I wish they'd bring some
But it's a
financial
solid job
intellect.
for the next 10 years.
It's a solid job, and I'm glad that in school that is a focus right now, which is amazing.
Well,
I'd like to see our education system revamped a little bit too,
100%.
though, where I think that financial literacy has to be part of grade 11, grade 12, where you're getting that course so that when you get out into the real world, you understand the risks of having a credit card and missing payments. You understand what's
That's
involved in rent.
That's long
what's
overdue.
involved. It's
Long
long overdue. So
Frank,
I'd like to see that in place.
I went into a school a few times to teach that course. They asked me to come in and teach it, and the kids were like deer in a headlight. Like, what? Like, they had no idea. Even talking about credit, how to build your credit. They're like, what's credit? Like, that's a course along with trades, but that's a course that kids need to do. How to save, how to open a bank account, how to deal with credit cards, how to build credit.
But it's the misuse
What's a
of
mortgage?
credit that knocks
Yeah,
them
what's a
right.
mortgage? How do you buy a house? All this stuff. Like that. That is a course that needs to be financial literacy, like you said.
And
needs
so
to
many
be taught in
people
school.
watch American TV shows where, they think they can go into a house, make an offer, get a mortgage for 90% of it, and the vendor's going to take back the other 10% that you can buy a house with no money down.
Isn't that what happens?
And I still hear all these courses, these people that are coming to Ottawa to do these courses where I'm going to show you how to own 5 properties.
Flip these properties.
It's not, this isn't the USA. In the USA, it's a totally different environment. The way they lend money out there is totally different than here. There's a reason that in 2008, 2009, the financial crisis happened south of the border, and we were not impacted by it because we lent responsibly all along. We never changed our guidelines. The one thing, the banks are extremely profitable. They're great at what they do, but they also know what their guidelines are, and they do not put Canadians at risk. They do not put the Canadian financial system at risk because they do it. Are they too tight sometimes? Absolutely. We still say it. If your delinquency is less than 1/10 of 1%, you're lending too tight. But that being said, at least when crises happen like they did in the U.S., it did not impact whatsoever. Our real estate market didn't tank like it did in the U.S. Our mortgage arrears remained. And look at even now.
Well, we had solid banks, too.
After COVID, after everything, our delinquencies went lower during COVID than they were prior to COVID. That's how solid our system is. And as long as we continue to do that, I think Canadians can feel comfortable knowing that. The only thing that's missing now is it's too hard to get into homes now. It's too expensive, and the young people are feeling like they're being left out.
Though, part of that, I want to go back to a couple of things because I do want to applaud the Ford government for a moment. They have.
Can we applaud when we come back? We're just
we can
a little
applaud.
over.
Fine, let's
521-TALK, 521-8255. We'll be right back. We are back. All right. Before I rudely interrupted you, you were going to applaud the Ford government.
That was rude, by the way.
Very
Steve.
rude.
Very rude.
It was not. I was not minding my time, so I'll take it.
Usually it's Frank, so no big deal.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say, look, you were calling on financial literacy being a regular part of education. You were calling on support for trades. I think the Ford government, there was also an Ontario election not that long ago, and they're back in again in Ontario. And these are two of their priorities that they've recommitted to in addition to fraud reduction. So I think there's a lot of interesting things going on provincially right now. And of course, it's going to embed what's happening across the country federally too.
So you're excited is what you're saying.
Look, I'm always optimistic.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful they get it right. I'm hopeful that the needs of Canadians are going to be heard and met at every age and stage of their life. So not just new home buyers, not just young people. Everybody here needs to have a prosperous life.
Why
are you looking at us?
Well, I like how you said, though. I like how you said that these are promises. I just hope, anytime we're going into elections, someone's like, what do you think of their platform and what they're promising? And I'm like, exactly that.
But a lot of the promises were close, so that could bode well. Even with a minority government, there could be some things that end up going through here.
Well, let's hope. I mean, because there is some good ones.
Yeah, there are some good ones. There are some good ones. And I think, look, Canadians made their choice. We tend to be a little more on the moderate side of things as a rule, and we made a moderate decision. We felt more comfortable as a nation with this choice, but not by much. Like, I really don't want to take away from how close this election really was. It was very close. So if I were sitting in the chair of Prime Minister Carney, I'd be looking at all of the Conservative voters as well and saying, look, they also let me know what I need to do for them.
And he seems to be.
I think so. So let's see what comes out. I think we've got an exciting month ahead and lots to continue to look at for sure.
We don't really like to talk politics on this show.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of have to
because we're alienated, but you can do it. Frank and I can't, but you can.
That's not true. Yeah. You guys are good.
How is it I never heard the word amortization come up through all of these promises?
Oh, because the amortization was increased in October, was it? October, I think, where they came out with the 30-year amortization.
But people are living into their 90s now. Why not 35?
Well, the system is still broken because there's no age cap, so you can't discriminate against age. So even as a 65-year-old, you can get a mortgage with a 30-year amortization. There's no lender that can say you can't take a 30-year amortization. So,
But would you get it, though?
You would get it because they can turn it down for some other reason. They can't turn it down because of age. So
you're good, Steve.
So yeah. So you still got even at your age.
I could die way ahead.
But I think we're also heading into a time where I think Canadians are coming to terms with even first-time home buyers. If you're 40 years old and you're buying your first home and you got a 30-year amortization, that's 70. That could be well beyond your retirement age. So I think Canadians are coming to terms with the fact that they may not retire without a mortgage. They may have a mortgage. The goal is to have as much equity in your home as possible so that you've got some fallback and you've got some tax-free money built up, because your home that you live in is tax-free when you sell it. So therefore, if you can somehow, even if you buy a house today for $600,000, if that same home is worth $900,000 when you retire, but your mortgage is down to $200,000, you've at least got a $700,000 nice little piggyback that's tax-free that you have access to at retirement age.
But how many first-time home buyers stay in that home? Not many.
Well, but I think
you're going to move up.
I think we're going to start to see more of that.
Why not a 40-year amortization on first-time home buyers? Because they're going to buy a second home anyways. At least it gets them into the market.
It would have to be a gradual increase, because I think the government's learned the lesson that if you go from 30 to 40, we're going to have the same scenarios we did during COVID, because there are pent-up first-time home buyers right now. And the last thing that I think the government wants is for house values to be driven up drastically like they were during the COVID time. So if we start to see that happen, I think we're going to see it happen on a gradual basis, and it's not going to happen that quick. So do I think that 40-year amortizations, they were there once in Canada, and they actually happened during the financial crisis, which had nothing to do with Canada. It had to do with the U.S., but in 2010, 2011, there were 40-year amortizations, 0% down if you had job stability for 2 years, and if you had a credit score that's above 680. So you can buy a house with 0 down and a 40-year amortization.
And cashback. Remember cashback ones too?
Yeah, that was before, and they got rid of that. And there's still cashback mortgages, but you pay for them. A lot of banks will offer you cashback, but there's a cost to them.
Well, if you break that mortgage, you're paying that cash back too, right?
Well, but generally speaking, the interest rate is not the same if you're doing a cashback mortgage versus a non-cashback mortgage. It's no different than going to buy a car, and if you don't take their loan, sometimes you get it for cheaper. It's no different. There's always a cost to things, so look out for that. But I think young Canadians should get a 35 or 40-year amortization. I think another one of the proposals we're making is I think we should allow parents to withdraw money from an RSP as a home buyer withdrawal if you're helping your kids get into a home. So instead of parents having to take the money out of the bank account, why not let parents who might be in their 50s, 60s, 70s that have a whole bunch of money saved up in an RSP, why not give them the freedom to be able to take money out of the RSP tax-free, give it to their kids to be able to buy a home?
That's awesome.
That's the key. I think that there's some ideas that our association's coming out with that I think will help young Canadians at least have hope of getting into a home. Because the last thing we want to be is like a lot of European nations where the only way you get a home is if you inherit it when your parents pass away. That's how you get homes in most European countries.
But you get 2 kitchens.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do in Italy.
That's only in Italy, though.
Yeah. But what a lot of kids do in Italy is they rent, they live their adulthood renting, and the only time they become homeowners is when their parents pass away. Now they own a home because their parents have passed away. I don't think that's the road we want to go down in Canada.
Well, we're close. We almost need mom and dad's money anyway.
But at least it's an early inheritance. We always say there's nothing wrong with an early inheritance to help kids get into a home. Like, why wait until you die to give the kids the money? Why not give it to them so you can see them enjoy it and you can see them get further ahead?
I hope my parents are listening.
I hope something tells me your parents helped you quite a bit.
I hope your kids are listening.
Yeah. No, trust me, they're not. But trust me, they know about this. Yeah.
But Frank, the point you're making is a really important one. But there's even another level of importance to it now that we're dealing with Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. We've got to keep Canadians in Canada. So if our young people who are, studying and they're bright and, they're our future, basically, whether they go into trades or not, if they don't have a view to their future that is permanent, that is stable, that is certain, why would they stay? And we've suffered brain drain a long time. We're looking now also at a prime minister who's very much behind tech and AI. Those are high-paying jobs. That means good money into the country, a good tax base for the country and its programs. We have to keep these people here. We want them to buy the homes, and they might be able to afford the $1 million starter home.
Some of the most important jobs, like doctors, nurses, those are some of the people we're
broadcasting.
Losing. Steve broadcasting.
Steve's on his way out.
But those are 2 massive jobs that we're losing to the States right now. And what do we have a shortage of right now? Doctors and nurses, right? And so we're losing those to the States. The one thing,
I don't think we're going to lose much to the States for the next 3 years.
But I will tell you one thing. Let's see. Listen, whether you love Trump or hate Trump, I'm not here to debate it and tell you whether I love him or hate him. But I will tell you one thing: is we are starting to support our company, our country more than we ever have. We're seeing different companies who are finding Canadian arms to their business now rather than going to the States or even China over there. But we are starting to see that Canadians are now supporting Canadians. They're looking for alternative ways. I mean, a lot of the builders now who used to get some of their parts for their homes in the States are now outsourcing to Canada. And so, which is really good. So I think this might keep our country so much stronger because of what Trump is doing right now with these tariffs. And I think going forward, we're going to have a lot of companies that are only going to support Canadian companies.
I think that's absolutely right. And also yesterday,
did you hear that, Frank? Absolutely right. Sorry.
I hope so.
I didn't hear a thing.
I hope so. But we also heard PM Carney talk about softwood lumber. I mean, he dug in yesterday and said, and our homes are going to be built with Canadian lumber, which is important. We do have those natural resources. We should be exploiting them and building up those markets
Well, and
here.
if we can open up trade by July 1st, that's going to be a huge difference.
Oh, I hope so. And I mean, I don't think Canadians really can imagine, at least today's modern times, what that could mean for us. Like, I would love BC wine. I would love BC wine to come easily to me right here in Ottawa. Also, though, if I'm a credentialed professional...
Well, then let's do it. If you want wine, let's get it done.
Can you get me the wine? Can you get me the wine right before the break? I'm kidding. No, but credentialed
she can get you the wine. Don't worry. She's a wine rep, so Petra can do it for you.
Yeah, I tease, although wine is important to Canadians. But the professional movement as well. If I'm a professional who's skilled in one province and I want to move... that might be easier too, labor mobility. So it's another big
credentials
how
count.
How are we making out with the interprovincial tariffs right now? Like, what's going on with that?
They're coming.
Yeah, but they were 3 months ago.
No, but there's been a number of provinces that have already opened it up.
This is what he's talking about by July 1st.
And passed it. This is what we're hoping for July 1st, is that the trades those barriers are gone. Canada's Canada. What I think Trump has also done, though, he's opened up free trade with other countries. We were too reliant on the U.S. before, where now I think he's opened the doors. In a way, he's done some good. I think he's done bad for the U.S., but they are not going to realize it for a while, because I think he's opened up the eyes of other countries to say, let's not rely on the U.S. so much anymore, and let's see if we can get deals within ourselves so that we're not so reliant on one person controlling what happens.
And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, we are going to be stronger as a nation because of this. We really will.
It should have been done 15 years ago.
Right?
Should have, but it hasn't.
But it hasn't, yeah. But it is now, Stephen.
Long-term commitments, got to start somewhere.
Did you just call me Stephen? What, are you mad at me?
I am mad at you.
521-TALK, 521-8255. We'll be right back. Do you realize that if you look for a house now and you close in 3 months, it's almost in time for the kids to go back to school?
Isn't that crazy? Right? Like where we are right now, yeah, you are. And that is what we're seeing, right? Because that's one of the most popular closing dates of the year is, usually August, anywhere from August 20th onwards is the most popular.
We're almost there.
We're almost there. Yeah, people who are searching now are looking for that closing date. So if you're thinking, I got to get my house on the market and get it sold before school starts, now's the time, because that's what people are looking for right now.
Yeah, because another week or two, Costco will have the Christmas trees?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I love it when it's usually around, I don't know, maybe late February. You go into Costco and you see all the summer toys and all the things for the water and all that. I'm like, yes, spring is coming. But now we're already getting into like the winter stuff, are we not? Summer's over now.
No, it's not.
According to Costco, summer's over.
Yeah.
Summer's
Why
over.
did I bring that up?
Yeah, seriously.
What's going on with the U.S. jobs, Frank?
Well, again, they beat consensus numbers.
Apparently they added 177,000 jobs.
Apparently they did, and Trump's pretty proud. It's because of him that it's happened. And this has been happening for the last 4 or 5 years, where the U.S. report jobs, and then they have a second revision and a third revision. Well, it's scary to know that already in the first 4 months of 2025, the amount of jobs that they've reported compared to their last revision, they're down 120,000 jobs. So they over-report the amount of jobs, and then once they determine what actual jobs were created, that number comes down tremendously. But what it does, unfortunately for everyone, is that it drives the bond market. And when the jobs come in healthy like that, the bond market tends to go up. And in turn, mortgage rates don't come down. So instead, mortgage rates stay where they are or likely to go up. So that's the problem. I hope that they come up with a fix for that, because prior to pandemic, that was never happening. It really started happening during the pandemic. And before, the revisions used to be less than 1%. Now the revisions range anywhere between 10 to 20% of jobs every single month, which is just unfair because the markets rely on that initial job report and they don't focus on the revisions, which is unfortunate.
And our rates haven't changed in about 3 weeks.
Our rates haven't changed. The bond market's been fairly steady, up and down a little bit here and there. Up one day 5 beeps, down 4, up 3, down 5. So, a little bit of a roller coaster ride, a kids roller coaster, I call it. That being said, the spreads are fairly tight for the banks, so I will give them credit the fact that the rates could be higher with the bond market where it is, but because we're in the spring market and it's ultra competitive out there to get mortgage business, they're going to take a little bit less of a spread. And you'll see that if you go to a bank and your mortgage coming up for renewal, do not accept the first offer they give you because they've got much more in their pockets to give you. So if you're just doing a straight renewal and they come to you and they say, hey, look at this great rate we can give you. And again, they use their stupid posted rate to determine that they're giving you this massive discount when in reality, the posted rate is only there for them to profit from should you break your mortgage early. That's the only reason for posted rates that's out there. But again, shop around. There's nothing wrong with shopping your mortgage around, especially for so many Canadians that are now coming off of 2.5, 1.89% mortgages over the next 6 months, 8 months, and now are stuck with the high 3s, low 4s for their new mortgage rates.
At least they're still below 4, though.
They are below 4. And,
they're not horrendous right now.
We're up 30%.
When you're coming off 1.89.
Yes.
But that was an anomaly, though.
It was,
but it's still some people are getting into the market at that, and they're stretched at that, and now they're in the 4s.
They also had to qualify, too.
Yeah, true.
Well, they qualified at the 5, so this isn't a question of qualifying because Canadians, and I've said it all along, when Canadians got their mortgages back in 2021, 22, when the market was going crazy, they did their math. They qualified, yes, at 5.25%, but they were doing their math based on what their payments were based on a mortgage of 1.79%, and that was the determining factor in whether they were going to buy or not, because they knew they could afford it. I think they counted on interest rates going up, but they probably assumed that rates would be in the 2s, high 2s, not the high 3s and low 4s. That's where they feel like now it's tough. And let's look at the cost of everything today. The cost of everything is up so much. The cost of living is up so much that if you put those two together, that's why we're seeing a lot of Canadians refinance their homes, take some of their debt. They built up some equity. That's the greatest news that they have, at least, is the fact that if they bought in 2020 or 2021, they've probably, even if they bought with 5% down, they may have 35, 40% of equity in their home because of what happened during the pandemic.
We talk about variable a lot. Where do you see fixed rates in the next 3, 4, 5 months?
Fixed rates are probably going to remain pretty flat, up and down a quarter point, I would say. Bank of Canada, so it's interesting to see all the banks, and they all have different opinions of what's going to happen with prime rate. Most of the banks predict that in the second half of 2025, we're going to see Bank of Canada drop 2 more times for 0.5 percentage point.
Total of half.
Total, 0.5%. Scotiabank predicts that there's going to be no changes for the rest of this year, but Scotiabank says that next year they're going to drop by 0.75 point already. So,
they can gauge next year already.
They can gauge next year, apparently not this year.
Scotia.
So we'll see what happens. At the end of the day, we're really reliant on how these meetings go with the U.S., because they're actually going to either drive the market and drive the economy to go. Look at GM just laid off a whole shift, which is going to impact about 700 workers. So we're seeing some of the tariffs really impact some of our markets. Now, I don't think Ottawa's going to get hit very much. There's a reason we're all red here in this city. We voted red because everybody wants that job security. So, but in other parts of the country, and certainly where the car manufacturers are and where aluminum and steel is, they're going to be impacted by the tariffs.
Are you optimistic, Tanya?
Let's see. I'm cautious.
Well, that would be no.
Yeah. Tanya, you started out so good earlier, and now you've just crushed us.
Always optimistic, but I think everything Frank said is spot on. So I'm sorry. I know you hate that, but it is true. I was holding my notes, and I was like, I need to make sure I want to hear Frank's view on the rate cuts because they are forecasted, but it is so volatile right now. We don't know what's going to happen. I think it's a fast moving game.
Yeah. What if we end up in a recession?
Well, then rates are coming down. The biggest concern for Bank of Canada is inflation. It's by far the biggest thing that he fears right now. He does not want to get back to a scenario like in 2022 where inflation's at 8%. He will do whatever he can in his power to make sure inflation stays down. And the only way to keep inflation down, if it's happening, is to raise interest rates. So let's hope that inflation, because that's what tariffs are, they're inflationary. If we can get a deal in place that eliminates the inflation, then I think we're going to see some calming and likely some lowering of interest rates moving forward.
You think this month's going to be a very busy month, Paul?
I do.
We're into it now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. I do. We had a slowdown in April mainly because of the election,
and then shot down in May.
Yeah, but
that's a song, isn't it?
Yeah. But when you add tariffs to an election, you're going to have slow times, and we saw that. And so I do expect.
But now the election is over. Do you think people are taking a breath right now?
I literally think the Liberal minority is the fastest pace to pick up this market than a Conservative minority would have been. So I do believe that the market will pick up quicker, and I do believe that we will have quite a strong May, to be honest with you.
And to be realistic, if you list your house, how long before you think you can sell it?
It all depends on how it shows and what you price it at. If you're realistic on price and it shows well, you could expect that to be gone anywhere from 1 day to 14 days. But if you're not realistic on price or your home does not show well, buckle up. You could be in for a long ride.
Birthday's Frank.
Yeah, just my little brother turned 60 years old today, so happy birthday, my little brother Enzo. And
that's your much younger brother, right?
Much younger. Oh yeah,
much
2
younger.
years, all of 2 years.
Yeah.
Yep. And my sincere condolences and thoughts go out to our good friend Carla. Her mom passed away yesterday, so condolences to their family, Carla Rhoda Natoli. And I'm playing tomorrow pickleball at the EY Center, and we sponsored it, and it's to raise money for the Heart Institute. So pretty happy about that. Leanne Lang, who used to be with Bell Media, is running that, and we're pretty excited, along with Advanced Mick, to be there and support this great cause. So,
I'm actually glad you did say that on air because we can get the medics there for you.
You're not wearing shorts.
I've already arranged for that.
You're not wearing your tight shorts, are you?
No, capris.
Capris. Okay,
yeah, we're going to wear capris.
Good. Anything, Paul?
Yes, I do. Petra and I both have a very dear friend of ours, Jennifer Fraser, who celebrated a big birthday on her 29th birthday on the 30th of April. So happy birthday,
How
Jennifer
are you friends
Fraser.
with a 29-year-old? What's going on here?
Well, she's not really 29,
right,
but
say
I'm
her
just,
age.
yes.
Nobody's listening anyway.
Tanya,
Nobody
before you
listens to our
go,
show.
do you want to tell us how good we were?
I think you are excellent.
Thank
It's
you very
always
much.
a pleasure to sit with you.
Thank-
Always a pleasure.
Thank you for coming in. Always
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having
so
me.
much.
Tanya.
Yes, and support local Canadian businesses and charities, everyone.